Cindy, and today I am going to show you how to make your own Coptic stitch journal. And so when you're done, it's going to look sort of like this. And it'll be something you can use, and it'll lay flat, and I think you'll really enjoy the craft. Okay, so if you were able to get one of our kits, there's a few things in there. So you'll see these dark pieces of sort of cardboard-like paper. Those are known as your chipboard, and you're going to use these to make the front and back covers. You'll also see some large pieces of colored paper. I'm pretty sure they're all patterned, and those are going to be the exterior covers for your front and back covers. So these pretty sides you're going to want facing out because the other side is blank. You should also have some kind of plain, smaller looking paper, and that's going to be the interior of your covers. So, for example, this is our finished sample, and so these big ones are going to be our outside cover, and then if we open it up, we see that there is a little piece right here, and so that is going to be the interior of your cover. You also received 30 pieces of blank white paper, which you're going to need to fold in half into signatures, which I'll talk about more later in the video. And then I believe the last thing that you received is a needle with a really long piece of thread. So the hardest part of this whole project is really going to be keeping this thread from tangling. So just go slow, and if it does tangle, you can cut it and sort of start again, but I just recommend going slow. Finally, some things that you're going to need to make sure that you have. You will need some kind of glue. I use both a glue stick and Elmer's glue, but you can just use Elmer's glue, that's fine. You're also going to want a pencil and a ruler. The ruler is actually pretty darn important. If you can get a thumbtack or a nail, that's going to be helpful because we're going to punch in some holes and our needle probably isn't going to work very well. Having some binder clips to keep everything together will also be helpful. And then finally, if you can get like an ironing board or just an old piece of cloth, that's going to help you in the punching process. I suppose you'll also, if you can have some heavy books handy to keep everything pressed flat, that's also really good. But hopefully these are things that you mostly have around. So we're going to get started on the instruction portion of our journal, and let's just get started. Okay, to make our notebook, which looks like this, first off we're going to need to make our front and our back covers. So to do that, you're going to take your pieces of chipboard. Let's start with one. And we're going to take one of our large pieces of paper. Turn it over so that you have the pattern facing down. And then you're going to take your glue, using a glue stick for this, and you're going to cover one side of your chipboard with glue. Then you're going to press it down in the center of the paper. You can measure if you'd like, or you can just kind of eyeball it. I generally just eyeball it because I get pretty darn close. So let's do this. And that looks pretty good. Press it flat. And then you're going to want to fold over the excess paper. Okay. Once you have these nice creases, you're going to take some scissors and you're going to cut off the corner, but you're going to want to make sure that you do so at an angle. So it should look approximately like that, And then you're going to do it with each of the remaining 3 corners. Okay, so you now have all 4 corners cut like this. And then you're going to want to take some slightly better glue than your glue stick. I recommend Elmer's or Mod Podge, something like that. And you're going to glue down each of the sides. Okay, so now you're going to have something that looks like this. This is the side that's going to face the outside on your journal, and this is the side that's going to face the inside. Now you're going to take your smaller piece of paper, it probably doesn't have a pattern on it, and we're just going to glue it on over this exposed chipboard. Once again, make sure to use your slightly stickier glue like Elmer's or Mod Podge. Once again, you can either finally measure how you're placing it on the cover, or you can simply eyeball it. You'll generally get a pretty good, you'll still generally get pretty good quality even if you just kind of eyeball it. And if you're wondering why I was spreading out the glue with my finger, it's because I want this paper to lay flat, and sometimes if you don't do that, you get little bumps. But we're looking pretty good right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this finished cover right here, and I'm going to put it underneath a heavy book to lay flat, and then while that's happening, I'm going to take my second piece of chipboard and I'm going to make it look like this first one. Okay, so I'm going to put both of my covers aside to dry and flatten. And in the meantime, I'm going to start making my signatures. So, this is our finished notebook. And if you notice, our notebook is made with these little bundles of paper, and each one of these bundles is called a signature. And what a signature essentially is it's several pieces of paper all folded together. And I'm going to show you how to make those signatures right now. So this is your white paper, and you should have 30 sheets. We're going to make 6 signatures. Each signature is going to have 5 sheets. So I'm going to set aside 5 for right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're just going to fold them in half. After we have folded our 5 pieces of paper in half, we're going to put them inside of each other. So as you can see, we've kind of made like a little sandwich so that all the folded sides are together and all the open sides are out. And this is a signature. That's all it is, 5 pieces of paper folded in half and put inside of each other. So this is our first signature, and like I said, we're going to have to make 6 total. So go on and fold the rest of your paper and form them into signatures. So once you have folded your sixth and final signature, you're just going to stack them together like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that the folded sides are all together and the open sides are all together. And they're going to just look like that. So now we're going to measure where we're going to place the holes that we're going to thread our thread through. If you have any binder clips, this is a good time to use them to try to keep all the signatures together and straight. Now we're going to want to take our ruler and we're going to want to measure a few dots in the side of our signatures. Okay. So from the top down, you're going to want to measure 3 dots 1 inch apart. See the dots that I have here? There should be a dot on the outside of each of these signatures, and you want to try to keep it in a straight line so that your thread ends up being pretty straight when you sew it. Then we're going to take our ruler and we're going to measure 3 dots 1 inch apart from the bottom of the signatures. So once again, we want to make sure that there is a dot on each of the edges of these signatures. We want to try to keep them fairly straight if we can. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and it's okay, because this is your first time doing the project. And so now you can see that there are 6 dots on each one of our signatures. These dots are where we are going to punch in a hole that we are going to use to do the sewing. So at this point, you want to take your piece of cloth and your thumbtack. We're going to separate the signatures, and we're going to lay each of them flat open on our ironing board, cardboard, or piece of cloth, whatever it is that you're using. And then we're going to take our thumbtack and we're going to punch a hole into the papers directly through that little hole we drew. So as you can see, I now have 6 little holes at the spine of this signature. If we look on the inside, I did manage to punch those holes all the way through, which is what you're going to want to do. So now you're going to repeat this process with the remaining 5 signatures. So now you should have holes, 6 holes per signature in each of your 6 signatures. And we're going to set that aside for just a second. If you'd like to take a few more minutes to let your covers sort of dry, you can, but I'm going to keep moving forward because we do need to measure where we're going to punch the holes into our covers. My covers are fairly similar, but I think I want this one to be the front and this one to be the back. So you're going to want to choose which one is which. Then you're going to take your front cover and your ruler, and you are going to measure a 1/2 inch in from the left side. Make these marks really lightly, especially if you don't want to leave pencil marks all over your cover. And then when you have those marks set out, you're going to put your ruler on top of it. And you're going to measure 3 dots 1 inch apart from the top. And then you're going to measure 3 dots 1 inch apart from the bottom. This is a really pretty pattern piece of paper, but it is sort of difficult to see where I put my dots. But there's one here, here, and here. And then from the bottom, we have one here, here, and here. And so I'm going to take my thumbtack and I am going to punch a hole into each of those dots. And so now I have 3 holes. It's a little bit easier to see on the back at the top and 3 holes at the bottom. If you have any excess pencil marks, you're going to want to erase them now. But that's it for the cover, for the front cover. Then we're going to take our back cover. And this time we're going to measure 1/2 inch from the right side of the back cover. And then you're going to want to make 3 dots 1 inch apart from the left side. And then you're going to want to make 3 dots 1 inch apart from the right side. So if you look really, really close, I have 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. And then, as you might have guessed, we're going to take our thumbtack and we're going to punch in each of these 3 holes. So now you can see we have 3 holes on the top and 3 holes on the bottom. So if this is our front cover, we see that these holes are lining up correctly. And they are also going to line up correctly with the holes in our signature. That's all pretty important. So as you can see, our notebook is starting to take shape, but we're going to have to do what is arguably the most difficult part of this process, which is the sewing part of it. So we're going to start from the back cover. So we're going to start from the back cover and we're going to sew up to the front cover. The front cover, what I want you to know right now is that the front cover and this final signature are going to be sewn on at the same time. So you might feel like you're in a really good groove at that point, but try to remember to slow down and don't do the final signature just yet. But what we're going to do is we're going to set aside the top cover and the top 5 signatures, and we're just going to start working with this bottom cover and this bottom signature. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to thread your needle and then fold the thread in half and tie it in a tight knot at the end. Okay, so we're going to open this bottom signature and you're going to start at this bottommost hole. Push the needle from the inside of the signature out, slowly pulling the thread along with you. You will end up with the tail on the inside looking like that. Then we're going to take our needle And we're going to go from the outside of the cover in this hole right there and pull it through. You should get something that looks approximately like this. See? The thread is now on the inside. Now we're going to start knotting it. Knotting thread for a Coptic stitch essentially is just crossing the thread over itself to create a sort of knot. Okay. So we see that the thread is here on the right side. What you're going to do is you're going to cross it over the front and loop behind it. So cross over, loop behind, and then pull your thread tight. This might be difficult to see, but you should essentially have like a little knot that looks like that. And that knot is going to keep it secure. Once you have that done, you're going to take your needle and you're going to put it into that signature hole that you just came out of. You can see that the needle is now back inside the signature, and then we're just going to pull it all the way through. So the tighter you pull that thread, the closer the signature and the cover are going to be. If you leave the thread loose, the cover will wiggle, but you don't want to put it too tight because you need a little bit of maneuverability at this point. But that's the first knot. So we'll take our needle and we'll put it into the hole in the signature to the left, and then pull through. And the inside will look like that. And so now remember, we have to go from the outside of the cover to the inside. Make sure your needle is going between that first signature hole and the second one, because now we need to make a knot. So remember, you have to make sure the thread crosses over from the right to the left and that you put the needle underneath the thread like that. You pull tight and then you push the needle back through that signature hole. And that's your second one. So what you're going to do for the remainder of this first signature is you're just going to repeat those moves again and again. We have to do the third hole, the fourth hole, the fifth hole, and then the sixth hole. But we're going to slow down when we get to the sixth hole, so don't continue forward just yet. Okay, so now we've reached the sixth hole in the signature, and this is where things are going to change a little bit. As normal, we're going to push the needle into the signature from the inside out. We're also going to put the needle into the cover from the outside, going in. We're going to make sure the thread is to the right of that signature hole, and we're going to do our knot. What's going to change is now we're going to add a second signature. So put your second signature on top, like that. And then you're going to push the needle from the outside of the signature to the inside. Then we're going to go to the next hole in the signature and put our needle through. So we're going to have to make a knot now, but we're going to make a knot using the knot in the signature below. So you still put your needle underneath that piece of thread. You can see that it's connecting now, and then we're going to just put our needle back into that signature hole and pull through. So if you look, you can tell that we're starting to make a really nice looking little chain, and that's essentially what you want to try to have. Coptic stitch is also known as a chain stitch, and it can be really pretty once you get really good at it. But even if it turns out a little bit messy, remember that's okay, especially if this is your first time doing any kind of bookbinding. And let's just continue. We'll put the needle into the next available hole. Remember, we're going to put our needle underneath. As you might have seen during that first time, now we're going from the right underneath the previous thread. And then we're going to put the thread into the signature hole, and it is secure. As you may have guessed, we're just going to do the same thing with each of the remaining signature holes, and then once we get to the sixth hole, we're going to repeat what we did over here and add another signature. If you feel confident that you can just do this on your own at this point, feel free to fast forward the video until you get to the final signature. But otherwise, I'm going to pause at the end of each and every one of these signatures to remind you how to attach the next one. Okay? Okay. We reached the sixth and final signature hole. So as normal, we're going to go into the signature hole from the inside out. We're also going to loop underneath the previous thread. What I'd actually like you to do is I'd like you to go under one more time for added security. And then you're going to place your third signature on top and go from the outside in. If you'd like a little bit of extra security while you're doing these, I also recommend that you take those binder clips and you just clip it in place, and that'll prevent it from sliding too terribly much. But then we can just continue as we have been. Make sure that you're only threading the needle underneath the previous knot. Try not to go too far down because then your book is going to be loose. If you put your needle only under the knot for the signature directly below it, you're going to get a much tighter, more secure feeling notebook. Okay, remember when you reach the final hole in your signature, you are going to loop underneath the chain of the previous signature, but then I do encourage you to go under one more time for added security. And then we're going to add our new signature on top, pushing through the outside hole in. Okay, remember now that we are at the final hole in the signature, we want to go underneath, then we want to do an extra knot for security, then we grab a new signature, go in from the outside, Okay, so at this point you have done 5 of your 6 signatures and it should look something like that. And now we need to add our 6th and final signature as well as our front cover. And this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky again, because we're going to do the 6th signature and the front cover at the same time. So much like doing the back cover and the first signature at the same time was a little bit tricky, this is also going to be a little bit tricky, but the technique is essentially the same as what we did. So if you manage to get that first cover on, you can do this last cover. All right, so what we're going to do is we finished this right here, correct? And now instead of moving on to the 6th signature, we're going to actually do the cover first. We're going to put the needle into the outside of our cover and pull through. We're going to make sure our needle goes to the right side of that cover hole, and essentially looks like that. Then we're going to make a knot by putting our needle underneath the previous signature knot and pull through. So it looks like that. At that point it looks pretty similar, but we haven't actually done anything with this 6th signature yet. So this is when you are going to very carefully push your needle through the signature hole. You do want the thread to try to cross over itself, because remember, having those knots is what ties our journal together and makes it secure. It looks like this ended up a little bit loose, so we're just going to try to adjust it. I'm actually going to use my binder clip to secure the front cover and the signature together to make sure that they stay together, and I try to keep this as tight as possible. I'm also going to put a binder clip on the bottom, once again because I kind of want to keep everything together as we finish this delicate process. Okay, so essentially pull your thread as tight as you care, and then once you feel pretty good with how the outside cover looks, we're going to go in through our signature and push out. So it looks like that. We are now going to put our needle on the outside of our cover to the inside. I'm going to remove my binder clips temporarily so you can see that it's going to look like that. And then we're going to make sure our needle goes to the right of that signature hole. So now it looks like that. And we're going to put our needle underneath the previous knot. And then to secure it a little bit better, I do recommend you double knot this whole row. Okay, so now we can go into that signature hole. You see the needle has gone through. And I pull it taut. And then I push out. And we're going to go to the outside of the cover. The needle will go to the right of the signature hole. At this point, you should start to see the pattern. So I'm just going to do this one last time, but remember we put the needle underneath. We put the needle underneath the previous knot. We're going to double knot it to make sure that it is extra secure. And then we're going to put the needle back into that top signature hole. So at this point, you're just going to continue this process for the remaining 3 holes in that final signature and cover page. And then we'll meet again for this last signature hole. But you are super close to done. So for this one, I did do an initial knot underneath the previous thread before moving on to the cover. Then we're going to do our double knot. 1, 2, and then finally back into that signature. One last time. Pull through. And then we're just going to tie a knot here. You don't necessarily have to do a knot that thick, but I really don't want my hard work to go to waste. So I make a really thick knot and then I just trim the edge very close. I go to that back signature that we worked on first, and I also trim the tail. And you have yourself a really lovely Coptic stitch journal that you made all on yourself. One of the cool things about it is that it lays pretty darn flat, and you can just use it and enjoy and feel really proud of this really cool thing that you made. Okay everyone, I hope that you enjoyed making this Coptic stitch journal. I hope it's something that you can use and treasure, and that maybe you'll even try to make it again on your own sometime. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them underneath our video or to email me. My email will be provided. And we'd love to see pictures of your own journals or even hear about how the process went. So I hope you have a great day, and thanks for stopping by.